I mean, not that.
It's Judy on the radio, building dreams and achieving more, telling it just like it is. Most of all, keeping it real. Are you ready for real talk? Changing lives and communities. Real talk. Saving all our families. Real talk. Bringing hope for you and me. Real talk. Real talk with Judy. Real talk with Judy on the radio. Real talk with Judy. Real talk with Judy on the radio.
Well, hello, greetings and salutation. Welcome to the Real Talk with Judy live radio show. I am Dr. Judy, the host of this amazing show, and I want to thank you once again for tuning in and allowing me and my guests to speak to you for an hour or 55 minutes, 50 minutes. We're glad that you're here. Whether you're here by radio, Facebook Live, YouTube, or StreamYard, we're glad to have you. One of the things I want you to do, please do me a big favor. This show is so important to so many people. So many people are going to be helped, informed, and you're going to get a better understanding that little white van that you always see in your neighborhood, that is not human trafficking, more than likely. They don't ride around that little white van anymore, but we have some experts here who are going to talk to you about that. But in the meantime, do me a big favor, if you would. Go call, text, tag everyone you know, and invite them to join this broadcast. I'm going to give you a few minutes because I'm going to do an introduction. And so while I'm doing this introduction, go and get everybody on. And as those of you who've been on the show before understand, I do not start the show without recognizing my mom, Dr. Onohana Wesley, and my dad, Mr. Sylvester Wesley. Even though they're no longer here in the flesh, they're always here in my heart and spirit. I feel them in everything I do. I really do. And so I want to, and I give honor to them because I am a product of them. And so are my siblings. We represent our parents, my siblings, my nieces and nephews, their grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We represent our parents. So I will give a shout out to them because they made me who I am. And of course, my amazing husband, thank you, sweetheart. We just come from the DJJ Award show. He was right there with me, taking pictures and smiling from ear to ear. Jer, I love you so very much. Thank you. And to you, Priscilla, thank you so very much. She always does such an excellent job at producing every flyer, everything. I might get on her nerves sometimes, but she still produces. So, I can take to getting on the nerve. I remember one time I wanted to borrow some money from my uncle. I didn't want to borrow no money. I wanted him to buy me some congos. I was a drummer. And boy, he just fussed. I sat right there, let him fuss. He was mad. I let him be mad. And afterwards, I just said, "Are you going to give it to me?" And so he gave it to me. So sometimes it's worth taking the whipping, right? But Priscilla, I thank you so very much for all you do. And of course, to you, the amazing audience that keep coming back every Tuesday, every Thursday. I want to thank you all so very much. I appreciate you all. I just left the DJJ event and walking out, I had people to tell me that they listen, that how much they love the show. They listen to the show all the time. I want to say thank you, because you don't have to, but you're tuning in at 11:30. I want to thank you so very much. You all who come back and watch the replay, I want to go ahead and say thank you, because some of you can't get off or they don't allow you to use your computer at work. But thank you. It means everything to me. And I got to say to the greatest church family ever, Life Changers, thank y'all so very much for your support. And Bethel Missionary Baptist Church, thank you all for so many. I have so many. We listen to you every Tuesday. D, down in the fellowship hall or wherever you are, Thank y'all so much. We're getting ready to get ready for this amazing, amazing show. I left out one of the biggest. To you, the audience, thank you all. Oh, I think I said that, but I want to say it again. I appreciate you all so very much. I really do. You all are absolutely phenomenal people. And you keep coming back. Make me feel good. All right. So, but we're about to get ready for this show. I want you to go ahead, take a seat at the table. Elle, you get to call in. We want you to call in. Talk to Miss Robin. Talk to Miss Lori. Ask them questions, please. But this is what I'm going to say. If you call in, and unfortunately, if you have been abused or sex trafficking, this is what I don't want you to do. Even though Ms. Robin is an attorney, I do not want you, please, to give anybody names. Am I right?
Right.
Don't give anybody names or anything. Please don't do that.
No identifying information.
No identifying information. We don't want you to do that. You want to talk to Ms. Robin afterwards. We'll put up the number where you all can call. But on the show, please don't do that. Because I think we're going to have some people who probably know are involved. But if you would, please do me a favor and don't do that. If you started, please don't get mad with me. I'm going to ask Dr. D if he would cut you off. So we don't want, please don't do that. All right, so let's have a good show. All right, y'all can keep seeing the nice side of Dr. Judy. So, but today I have two amazing guests. Ms. Robin will have to be my attorney. So I have two amazing guests here this morning. They are expert. Ms. Robin is, oh God, she's all over the world, locally, state, nationally, with the sex trafficking, human trafficking. And so I didn't want to do this without an expert. Just like last week we did domestic violence, I didn't have an expert on, but I had enough knowledge to give, and I looked it up, read. But we're gonna bring that back on. She's well versed in that too. But I want experts on to deal with this. There's just some issues I think you just really should handle with experts. And so today, y'all, I got it. So we're going to talk about human trafficking, the real, do you know what it really is? Do you know what it is? So my guests are first Ms. Robin Hessler Thompson, and she has a master's of art, her jurisdiction, her law degree. She is the executive director of the Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center, known as STAC, S-A-C. I am a graduate.
Yes, you are.
I've been certified through STAC. It's a nonprofit agency she co-founded in 2015 to assist survivors of human trafficking. She also is an active member of the Big Men Coalition Against Human Trafficking. In addition to her anti-trafficking work, Robin's areas of expertise include domestic and sexual violence law and policy. She has served on and held leadership positions, as I stated earlier, locally, statewide, and on national boards and commissions. She served as the executive director for Florida's first task force on domestic and sexual violence and on the National Advisory Council on Violence Against Women. She holds both a law and master's degrees from Florida State University and a BA from American University in Washington, D.C., where she graduated summa cum laude. I'm going to graduate in a couple of weeks, but it's Magnum, but I'm graduating.
Congratulations.
Get that 4.0, but I got it. And Miss Lori is here with us. She's a community health worker. She's worked for over 25 years in maternal, child, and women's health and has a passion for caring for women and children. She was always fascinated with childbirth. And after receiving a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing from Florida State University in 1994. Miss Lori, and I didn't say her last name because I'm going to let her say her own last name so I don't mess it up. Okay, but she worked on the labor and delivery unit at Tallahassee Memorial Hospital. In 1998, she earned a master's degree in nursing from the University of Florida and became a certified nurse midwife. Wow. She has been a clinical preceptor to Florida State University and the University of Florida Nursing and Midwifery student. Listen to this. This I'm like, whoa, listen to this. During clinical practice, Lori personally delivered over 1,200 babies.
Wow.
And assisted in the birth of many more. She's very involved in human services as a spokesperson against violence towards women and children, and has been trained as a sexual violence and crisis counselor. And I want to say to you, Ms. Robin, Ms. Lori, welcome to the Real Talk with Judy live radio show.
Thank you so much. It is so great to be with you again, Dr. Judy. I really love being here, and I'm so grateful that Lori, who's also, by the way, a former STAC board member,
Okay.
and it still is a liaison to our organization. And so she does, she's there for us when we need her advice and direction, and I'm so grateful that she's here today too.
Well, I'm glad to have both of you. Again, y'all, we're going to have call-ins, 850-671-1450. And anytime during the show that you feel like you want to call in to talk with Miss Robin or Miss Lori or myself, just call in, okay? Miss Robin, Miss Lori, do me a favor. Pronounce your last name to the people. They probably, why you didn't say pronounce your last name for me?
Okay, Dr. Judy, I will. My last name is pronounced Asifer-Toyo. Asifer-Toyo. I-C for
Toyo.
Yes.
Toyo.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
like speaking in tongues.
Nigerian tongue. My husband
That
is
is
Nigerian.
beautiful. Really?
Yes. Yes,
I
ma'am.
will get on that later. I love the culture of different countries, and I love to hear about them. But we won't do that today. But that is awesome. Welcome to the show, you
Thank
all.
you.
So this is what we're gonna do. We're starting today with the heavy truth because you can't fix what you don't face. So people think trafficking is a movie plot or something that happens over there. But the data tells a different story. So Ms. Robin, want to get in and anything else y'all want us to know about y'all before we get started?
I think you've covered it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm so honored. So exactly what is human trafficking?
You know, what it essentially is, it is the buying and selling of a person and the exploitation of a person for some kind of labor or sex. So I was thinking about it today. I was just telling this to Lori that it really comes down to the monetization of abuse. Like there's abuse out there, right? There's child abuse, there's domestic violence, but when it turns toward some sort of financial part of it, when someone is exploiting somebody and saying, you do this work for me, and if you don't, there might be a threat, there might be some other kind of thing. So what you have to think about is it's abusive to do certain things, but when someone uses force or fraud or some kind of coercion to get somebody to do something in any kind of labor, which is called labor trafficking, or commercial sex act, sex trafficking, then that's what human trafficking is. That human trafficking is the big umbrella. The only exception to this is if we see children who are being enticed into some sort of sex act. You don't have to show force or fraud or coercion because a child can't consent to sex, right? Can't consent to those things. So a 16-year-old kid who tells his girlfriend, hey, do this to my friends, do this with my friends so we have money to go to Disney, that girlfriend who's 13 maybe, she's a victim and he's a trafficker, right? She's a victim of, there's been no coercion, there's been no threat, but just the enticement of a child. And that's really there to protect children. So what I really appreciate what you said about Hollywood, like it's not the Hollywoodization or Hollywood, it's really much more basic. It's really much more everyday that this happens. And, our agency has helped over 290 people in our area, in this 6-county area around Leon County.
Mhm.
And for anybody who thinks it's not happening here, they're just wrong. And this has been both sex trafficking and labor trafficking of children and adults, of people who are documented and undocumented, people of all races, people of all ethnicities. There's no one who maybe doesn't have a vulnerability. If you have a vulnerability, you can be vulnerable to a trafficker coming in and exploiting it and saying, oh, I can help you have housing, or I can help you meet your, this addiction that you have, or I can get you that job if you do this one thing for me. So there's a grooming process that happens with trafficking.
So I've often heard the thing that you just mentioned. You mentioned about the fraud. Explain that to me. And then I want you to explain the grooming, because I've heard just recently, well, maybe last year, about grooming. And so it seems like so many people are talking about they're grooming them, or they're grooming. So if you would, mention about fraud, and I want you to talk a little bit about that. What does that look like, and what is it with the human trafficking? And then what is grooming?
Yeah. And Lori, we need to kind of have a conversation about some of this too.
Right.
I can start out on the fraud. I'll put my lawyer hat on.
Yeah.
How about
Take
that?
the fraud.
So fraud is really when traffickers do anything to deceive or to lie to somebody, make promises that they know they're not going to keep. They might say, if you come here, in a labor situation, it might be someone gives someone a contract and says, here, come to the United States, do the following things. And then this was a real case in Boca Raton. What happened was workers came from another country, were promised a job to do certain things, had their visas, had it all lined up, but when they got here, all bets were off. They weren't given the right work, they weren't being paid, they weren't being fed, they weren't being housed. None of the things that were in that contract were given to those workers. And those workers were discovered because they were scavenging in a dumpster behind a church one Sunday for food, because the trafficker,
Wow.
who represented himself or themselves as a labor contractor to have these people come in and do all this work, was lying, was defrauding essentially those people, making promises. But it also can be one-on-one. It can be, in a domestic violence situation. It could be somebody saying to the spouse, do this or else, or that's more of the coercion. I won't get into that. But it could be that, come and work for me. I'll help you be a model. But then when they come
Wow.
to find out, no, it's not modeling. He's saying, I have to have sex with these people, or I have to have sex with these men. So there's a lie, there's a deceit. And the other part is that fraud can take place over a number of years, or months, days, years, whatever. And that's when it kind of turns into a grooming situation. So Lori can speak to that maybe?
Yes. The grooming behaviors, there are a lot of different ways that people are groomed to be trafficked and abused. And before I get into a lot of detail, I'm just going to throw out one thing that really opened my eyes to it many years ago when I got involved with human services here, with volunteering with Beauty for Ashes under Pastor Cassie Hemming. There was an introductory film that she showed us, because I was on that board for a while too, called Very Young Girls. And it was produced by the Girls Education and Mentoring Program out of New York with Rachel Lloyd. And it was a documentary that showed, it displayed the life experiences of a group of girls between 12 and 14 that had been trafficked. And a part of the grooming process that it really highlighted, and I got introduced into what they call the Casanova pimp. Oh. So this is the one who grooms we say young women in, but it could go either way now, men and young women and young men, boys and girls. They treat them as a girlfriend, boyfriend type of situation. So they think they're in a romantic relationship with the trafficker. So they let their guard down because they think that they are being courted by this person, that they care about them, and before they know it, over a period of time, like Robin was saying, either out of their affection for the trafficker, they are coerced into participating in activities of trafficking. So that was a very eye-opening, and it's still out there. It was on Showtime. It got worldwide exposure. It was like one of the biggest documentaries at the time that so many people saw. That was in 2007. But the other part of the grooming also is just the neighborhood person. Like we were saying earlier, it's not the white van pulling up, snatching somebody anymore. It's Uncle Tony on the corner that likes to give out the candy, or, you know, types of things where they're doing something that a person is benefiting from. And any type of vulnerability they will exploit. It's somebody that is seeking affection. They may not have a loving family relationship. They may not have a father. They may not have a mother. And somebody's paying them a lot of attention, making them feel like they're special or that they love them. Or it could be something as simple as with young children, offering them candy, offering them money, knowing that a child or a young lady or a young man lives and has a poor family, doesn't have a lot of money. So they start offering them things. They give them money, they buy them food, those things. Housing, sometimes it's a housing situation. They take advantage of people being unhoused, and they'll offer them a place to live or to pay their rent or set them up in housing. And that's part of the grooming behavior also. In exchange for this, I expect you to do that. So it takes many forms. Single moms get groomed same way. They're struggling, trying to take care of their children, trying to provide food, provide necessities, and you get some benefactor that comes along and starts grooming them also. Oh, I'll help you buy food, I'll help you pay your bills, but in exchange, there's always going to be a price. It's not always just the violent, grab you off the street, beat you up type of thing. It's very subtle, often very subtle.
In fact, I want to tell you, of the
Wow.
290 people that we've assisted, none have been snatched and grabbed. None have been kidnapped. It's all been grooming. It's all been a family member or someone who's posing as some kind of benefactor or helper. And then we would be remiss if we didn't also talk about the grooming that happens online. Kids in particular, whether it's they're playing Roblox or Fortnite or any of those games, there's a way to direct message, right? And you have traffickers out there who are talking to the kids and saying, oh, you're such a good gamer. And the kid might say, or, you know, something like, well, I'm stuck at home because my mom restricted me. You know, that's too bad. Well, you're so smart. You're so whatever. And so there's that sort of same thing where someone lures them into what they think is a friendship relationship. That kid might think they're talking with somebody their own age down the street, but in fact, they're talking to somebody across the world who's trying to get them. DCF told us the other day, it's more and more common for traffickers never to even be in the same room as their victims because there is so much happening online. I mean, we could talk for a long time with experts about how they get both children and adults to believe that, you know, life can be better if you do A, B, and C for me. And then they develop a relationship. Sometimes it happens within hours. And they're taking pictures of themselves, they're sharing information that then the trafficker uses to threaten them. If you don't do this, then I'm going to tell.
These pictures and stuff. Wow. We have a question. Man, I don't know how y'all feel, but this is making me like feel some kind of way because it's putting everybody in jeopardy, especially since we don't see human trafficking as it was. You know, you look for the white vans and you look for
the creepy guy.
Yeah. You really did. Oh, we have a question.
All
Cynthia
right.
Holden is my sister. She lives in Scotland, so she's watching from Scotland.
I have heard about you, Cynthia. I don't know if you got the vibes. A couple of weekends ago, there was an amazing program that your sister hosted here locally. And yeah, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And yes, Cynthia's asking, are the laws against this different in different countries? And they are. There's a great commonality, though. So, for example, a lot of anti-trafficking laws in other countries include organ trafficking, including that kind of, that's in the United Nations conventions against trafficking. We deal with organ trafficking in a different way in our country, and it's not the definition generally of federal or state laws on that. So there are differences like that, but in the main, when you talk about labor trafficking, sex trafficking, labor trafficking is also sometimes called forced labor. There are prohibitions against that across the board. Penalties can vary. Sometimes the elements of laws can vary, but know that I mean, I would say that in the United States, that I know that every state has laws against this, and there are different kind of remedies sometimes in different states. So it's important to pay attention to what those are.
And also to add to that, Robin, for people who may not be aware, on the federal level, as of, I believe, 2010, under President Obama, they actually started to, they implemented federal laws and restrictions against human trafficking or trafficking of humans. And I believe it's 170 or 188 countries internationally that pretty much signed on and agreed to that treaty. But like she said, it still varies in different places. But there are federal laws on the book too that were implemented by our government, as well as state laws also.
And you know what Miss Cynthia can do too? Every year the State Department does something called the Trafficking in Persons Report or the TIP report. You can go on the U.S. Department of State and see what your country is doing to address this issue, to try to end, you know, what you're doing in terms of prosecutions and arrests, what you're doing in terms of programs that prevent trafficking, those kinds of things. So you can look up your country.
Wow. And Ms. Laura, I heard of, you mentioned that it's not just women. When you were talking, it's not just women, because we think, that's what I did. I used to think that it was basically women and children that they were trafficking. And the women, and I've learned since this that they prey upon vulnerable people. You just address that, but also boys.
Yes.
Are
boys and men, particularly young men, particularly homeless children. They are often victimized too. So if you have young men that are homeless also, they are exploited in the same ways. Another community, you know, we have some people that are living with gender confusion issues. A lot of those young people have been forced out of their homes, or they have run away from home and they're living on the streets. That makes them vulnerable also. But yeah, it's not just females, it's both genders that are subject to be exploited.
Yeah, and I was going to say one of the biggest cases in Florida, and it's been a few years, but it's called the it's a Palatka case called the Evans case, and we've got a case where we had individuals, African American men, in particular, who were found.
Good afternoon, good morning, caller. You're on the air. I'm sorry, say it again.
Just calling in.
Cindy had to call in. She's calling in from Scotland. Cindy, thank you for being on.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I'm just, this topic is been so hot in the last few years. You hear a lot about it, but on the periphery. Not many people talk about the guts of the matter, and this is just so fascinating, and I think it's something that they should really talk about in school more. I'm wondering if they do that, because I certainly didn't know all the things that you're saying, and I feel like I'm like clued up, and I had no idea, not a clue, that it was so involved. So thank you so much for, enlightening me.
Yeah, and I would say too that schools are vital. And 2 years ago, the legislature here in Florida passed a law that requires everyone to be trained on trafficking and for the information to go to children as well. So that's been on the books as something that they've been encouraging through our Department of Education. But last year, everyone from the bus driver to school teachers and faculty and staff, everybody needs to be trained on this just exactly for the reasons you said. So kids understand, and they also understand that children can be labor trafficked as well as sex trafficked. They can be forced to work and And if you have anybody in that situation as well, and that's what people, when law enforcement says see something, say something. Like to Lori's point, if you didn't see, if you saw a young boy being kind of solicited by, which has really happened on the library steps here in Leon County, if you saw a young boy being talked to by an older man, you'd say, oh, that wouldn't be a sex trafficking situation because only girls get sex trafficked. But no, that was a situation where a young boy was being enticed by an older man. So you have to have your eyes open as a kid, to be working as a child, to be to be with your friends. Like, that's not right. I got to know what that is, not just to protect myself and my brothers and sisters, but also to protect my friends and everybody in my kind of circle, and know what to do if you spot it so you can get help.
And I appreciate this as well. And simply because I know we often say, if you see something, say something, but you don't know what to say if you're not familiar what to look for. Am I
Yes, you don't know what to say if you don't know what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to add something that happened to me just recently. I was in Paris last week, and my daughter and I were having dinner at the Eiffel Tower. You like that, Judy?
I like that, Cindy. I like that. I like that. Thank you. Probably while I was having dinner at Popeyes.
Next to us was an older man and a young girl. I felt so uncomfortable. And I said to the waiter, I said, is that his daughter? And he says, I don't know. I think he's having an issue with his wife or whatever the case may be. But something in my spirit was bothered, and it still bothered. Because I'm thinking to myself, should I have said something? I wasn't sure. Should I have? So it's that thing, and it's still sitting with me. But I'm wondering, should I have said something? Was that little girl being trafficked? That's why this is so interesting to me, because it's become so relevant in my own mind. And I didn't know if I should say something. What if I'm bothering them? What if I'm wrong? That's a big problem.
Yeah, that is hard for people to deal with a situation like that. That's one of the reasons why the training that STAC does is so important, so that people can recognize situations like that, because that happens a lot. And you don't necessarily know what to say, but you can gain some tools through training to help you better understand the situation. Or even you could have just said, oh my gosh, your daughter's so beautiful. What's her name? And generally, if that's not his daughter, it may throw him off enough so that there's some type of tell there that you know that that's not a normal situation. But that's why it's so important to educate ourselves about what we're seeing, so that you see the red flags of things that are out of the ordinary. Robin and I did a training over in a local adjacent county here with the school students there, high school students, a couple of years ago. And we did a Zoom presentation so that high school students from all throughout the county could be on, like 200 students. I think there are about 200 students all over the county that were on. So we did a presentation and a training that STAC has for them, so that they could identify their vulnerability, because in this particular county, a lot of it is rural. And so that's another vulnerability, is if you live in a rural community, you're spaced out, you may be kind of isolated from people. You may have socioeconomic challenges that make you vulnerable, but the students were very engaged in it. It was very educational. And one of the things we pointed out to them, student asked a great question that led us into a part of what we were doing. They said, well, can another kid be a trafficker?
And the answer is yes, of course. And also let me do another add on to what Lori said, is we're doing a training this Friday. It's going to be live at 1:00, Friday the 17th, and our website is surviveandthriveadvocacy.org.
We got the poster. We got
the poster. So here's the deal. And what we talk about in the training is what to do if you suspect trafficking is going on in any kind of workplace, like a bank or a hotel or a restaurant in this situation. And very often what law enforcement tells us they want us to do is if it's an emergency situation, you call 911. If you see something going on that's dangerous, you call 911. But if you confront that situation, you could actually be putting the victim at risk. So you wouldn't go up and say, hey, are you in trouble? Hey, honey, this guy looks creepy to me. Can I help you get home, right? Which I'm not saying you would do that, but you know what I mean.
Well,
I almost did that.
she might do that.
But
So I'm glad you're telling her.
what we like is for people to take down all the information, just like you're wanting to see, like, what does the first man look like? What did the child, the girl look like? Ages, what they were wearing, all this stuff. Get all that identifying information. And then go to somebody, if you can, who is in a position of authority. And like you could have gone to, and I'm not saying you should have done this because who knows, right? But going forward, is there like a restaurant manager? You could say, hey, something's not right with the two people next to me. I'm afraid for that child. And then let that manager call law enforcement and bring, especially something like that where it's not like on the go, like people aren't just walking by. I got a call one time from a convenience store here in town where they said, something's going on. Somebody just came up to get gas. It's this guy and he's with a young girl and he's buying this food and he's getting gas now and something's not right with how they're interacting. And I want to congratulate or commend whatever for your your feeling. Like you have to pay attention to that spidey sense and that intuition when it comes, because something's not right. You get a sense that something's not right. You got to pay attention to that and do something with it. So one of the things you can do is at that point just say, I'm going to take all this information down. If you can surreptitiously take a picture, but like get a picture of the situation you can share with law enforcement later. We hear stories like in airports. This happened to Stack. One of our staff members was actually traveling, and she was in an airport in Dallas and said something's not right with this couple and these kids. And so she reported it back to us, or maybe it was in Tallahassee and they were going to Dallas. I don't know. But when the plane landed, law enforcement met that couple and those kids and just took them and interviewed them. So, no harm done, really, generally, if that happens, but maybe they stopped a bad situation.
Yeah, there's two things I want to say. Number one, don't be a hero, be a witness.
Right.
So don't be a hero, be a witness. So as it has been stated, if you see something, call the experts. Priscilla had the numbers up a few moments ago. Call the expert. But this is the other thing, Robin, I just thought about when Cindy was talking. Cindy, I believe now, I think I'm right. Cindy, you can host a Zoom, can she? She can host a Zoom with your women's society groups. She has like over 100 and some women. And you could get Robin and then Lori or those who do the training, you could get them trained. You all can get trained, and you still can get a certificate.
Yeah.
For this Stack Pro training. And so I'm going to send you Robin information. And you can contact.
I would get my American Women's Club over here.
Yeah. Get them all at your house.
And we will get together and we will have no, they can't come to my house. But we can get together and do a Zoom. I would love that.
We had about 100 over there when I was there. I can't get in there. I can't get in there.
That's what they can't come to my house.
But I was just thinking that would be a good idea.
We'd love to.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. Just, let's be in touch. And you know what? You can do a preview. You can get a sneak preview on Friday. And then what
Is
we're
it going to be,
we're recording it.
or you're recording it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's another option
That's great.
that you can watch it later if you wish.
Oh,
Dr.
I will do
Gale,
that.
Michelle Gale is going to be one of our teachers. Stephanie Shoemate, myself, and Graciela Marquina are all going to be doing our Stack Pro training. Just kind of like what you attended when you came to that.
Oh, okay.
the
Cindy, that's gonna be real great. But listen, I am ecstatic to have you on the line because she's one of my mentors. I love that girl. She's brilliant. She's brilliant. But just in case somebody else want to call.
I know, because this little call cost me about $30, so I'm gonna hang up.
Oh, my.
Well, you know what? You should have talked to Priscilla, and you could have come on StreamYard.
Yeah, next time.
Yeah.
You on it. I'm still on listening. Thank you so much.
All right. Do you have any other
Yeah.
questions or comments? Put them in the chat, or I could bring you on
Okay, I'll
StreamYard
do
before.
that.
Okay. Thank you so very much, Cindy. Thank you. Wow,
Another
that
thing
was good.
I would like to add, Dr. Judy, for people, because a lot of people, when we talk to them about the training, the work, what the spot work in labor, most people think of adults. And I would also suggest if you have a teenager that's working, that's out working, that it would be good training for them, because generally we think we want to train adults.
Oh, yeah.
But I know when Stack first completed the development of the program, I not only did it, but I had my 17-year-old to do it because he had gotten his first job.
Okay.
He'd gotten his first job, and so he's out in the work community. And so I wanted him to be aware not only of the situation, but also to have the tools of what to look for. Because if you look at a lot of our young people, they are out in restaurants, malls,
Yes.
places like that, where they're likely that they could spot some of this activity. So it's always good for them to know
Okay.
early too, because they may see something, they're working to drive their windows at the Popeyes, and they see something in the car
Mhm.
that might be a red flag to them. So I would say, teenagers, 17, 18-year-olds old, if they're in the work field and they're going out working, for parents to consider having them to do the training also.
Oh, that is awesome.
That's
That is
a great
awesome.
idea.
Parents, I hope you all are listening. Hey, I really hope y'all are sharing. I think you are. So many of you all on. I know so many of you all are listening. We got some more minutes if you all want to call me at 850-671-1450 and let these experts talk to you. And just like we're about to get a Zoom set up in Scotland. Let's get and our friends who listening in Paris and the ones in Bahamas, set it up. Zoom is good for a lot of stuff, not just trafficking. It's good for some other stuff too. And as she just stated, you got teenagers, or let's get these children trained. Now, there's something that was stated to me, and Ms. Rob, I think I mentioned to you. I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not, but we was having a training at our church on, I think, sexual harassment, and it came up a little, and I want to see if you all can touch on this, but that even at churches, you have to be careful of the people coming in to work with your youth ministry especially, and the youth that they may bring in to work with your youth ministry, because they can very well be getting other youth to be groomed.
To be groomed.
So could you explain, I'm just, and I have become interested in it because of the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls and having to take that training and learn so much. And Robin and I, you're part of the community staff who come in to help us. Could you all talk about that a little bit? Because sometimes as churches, there's so much happening with churches now, unfortunately. You have people who've been molested and all of this kind of stuff, but there's just some things we never fathomed happening at church. Could you all address that a little bit?
That's very true. Like you said, there are a variety of topics that the church is having to really come to grips with now and deal with. I know personally in my church ministry, anyone that volunteers with you, not even just with youth, all volunteers, but particularly those that work with any of our youth, have to have a level 2 background check done. Okay. So we do make sure that is done. Everyone has to have training with the staff.
Just a minute. Somebody write that down so you can send that to your pastor. Every volunteer should get
protect my ministry.
Protect my ministry. I like that. So I would suggest every volunteer, just send a suggestion to your pastor from Lori and Ms. Robin. I agree. But
And Dr. Judy.
And Dr.
Judy says.
Yeah, say that. But get all your volunteers a level 2.
They get a level 2 background, and it is done, is it every year or every 2 years? If they continue to volunteer, then it's done. I believe
Every
every
5?
2 years. No, every two.
Every
We
2
do
years?
Every two.
Okay.
They're working with the youth just to stay up to date on it, and everybody has to go through a training. We have a training program, video program, so it's self-paced. They can do it on their own, but they have to complete the training on childhood sexual abuse also. So they get that training, warning signs, do's, don'ts, and it's done through a church, not a church perspective, but it is geared towards church ministry to let people know just because you're in the church
Yeah.
does not mean that this is not an issue. So all of our volunteers, our ministers, all the people that lead any of the small groups, any of the leaders have to get trained on that also, so that we can try to keep our children safe. And everybody knows if they don't get it done, then
You
they
don't
can't
work.
volunteer, you don't work.
You know, one of the biggest cases, one of the biggest law cases that came out probably 15 years ago now, though, was called Kosminski. And that was a case, U.S. versus Kosminski, of where a man and a woman who were pastors set themselves up as running a like a camp for adults who had disabilities. And what that turned out to be was they were forcing the young men to work at their farm kind of camp place. They were forcing them to often work nude without any clothes on. They forced them to have sex with each other where they watched. And this was done by a pastor and his wife who were, quote, esteemed members of the local community. This was in Kansas. And so, you know, I guess I say that sort of shocking story just to let everyone know that traffickers come in all shapes and sizes. They come across the board, and in that case, they were getting the free labor, they were having the commercial sex act that they wanted to see. The men that they were forcing to do these things were men who had been sort of, I wouldn't say abandoned by their families, but their disabilities were such that they thought they were putting them into a trusted place that they could just not be in touch with them a lot and doing all the things to stay. It was one of the most horrific cases of human trafficking that I learned about when I started doing this work. So know that there are cases of churches. One of the biggest cases was this one guy held himself out as a religious figure and was trafficking African kids from an African country, I forgot which country, to be in a church choir and travel around the U.S. And churches would pay to have these kids come. And the guy said, oh, we're sending the money back to their home village. They were not doing that. He was keeping the money. So that's what I mean about the monetization of abuse. And it was a young man who was, while they were being trafficked at a church in Texas, spoke up to one of the host families that he was spending the night with and said, this is going on. And they disclosed that this abuse was taking place. And of course, the good people of the church were listening to these children singing. But whoever would think that a church choir would be an example of a labor trafficking of children case, right? But this was real. This was for real.
Robin, in regards to that, I actually attended performances by that children's choir. They were here in Tallahassee.
Oh,
They were Ugandan children. I got the CD still. I bought a
Oh,
CD and everything.
yeah.
It was Toto Children's Choir. They sing like angels. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely. I wanted to adopt one of the little girls. But did not find out until many, many years later that that's what was happening. The story was sold that they were rescuing these children who were orphans, whose parents had died, said parents had died from HIV. I think there were about 40 of them. It was a busload of them. The churches would host them when they came. They would have these concerts. People would attend the concerts, make donations, pay. They sold T-shirts, they sold CDs, and those children were being exploited. And another thing for the church, not the church itself as an exploiter, but as you say, as a witness to be aware. Another case that I learned about probably about 15 years ago when I first got involved with Pastor Cassie and Beauty for Ashes, we attended the big law enforcement conference over at Pat Thomas. And they were talking about human trafficking. And one of the major cases in the country was right over to the west of us over here on the coast, where women were being labor trafficked as housekeepers.
The
at a hotel.
Sandestin Hilton?
Yes, Sandestin Hilton.
Really?
They were being labor trafficked there as housekeepers. But guess what? They could go to church on Sunday. They took them to church.
They took them to
They
church.
took
on
them to
Sunday.
church. They were so tightly controlled through documents and fear. They could go out in the public like that to attend church services and then go back. And I think they said they had like 20 of them in one room or something. So I think finally the same thing there. The pastor or somebody at the church recognized, if I remember all the details, something was wrong. I don't know if they realized that this one man was bringing all these women to church, or somebody I think maybe also was asking for food. And so then that case was identified. So that's why you have to be aware of what's going on.
And so we want you, I want to personally send down shot again too, but I want you to personally contact Ms. Robbins so we can get these trainings everywhere. Even the information that Ms. Lori just gave about protecting our ministry. Let's get this training going on. Let's get, so we can, and I'm gonna ask them in a few minutes to give us how to recognize some of the red flags of human trafficking. Because that's why I bring these shows on, because I'm just seeing so much happen in our community, so much of this and so much of that. And I'm sitting on the plane when I travel a lot by plane, so I'm looking. I worked for the Department of Children and Families for 20 years. And when I saw things that looked suspicious, I reported it. I called the abuse registry. I can talk now because I don't, but I called the abuse registry because it just didn't look right. I felt some kind of way sitting in my spirit, and I called and I said, I'm not sure if anything is happening, but it looks like to me. And out of all of the calls I made, I probably now made like maybe 8 or 9 calls in 20 years, but 3 was really something, and so, but if we don't know what to look for, we may just, I had a little goddaughter one time, loved to sit in the men laps, but growing up, my mom would let us sit in men laps. And so we was like, get out, don't you sit in another lap, no laps. And so it's things like, it may seem a little, say sit in your daddy lap and your goddaddy lap, that's it. But we want us to be aware. There's just too much happening in children, women, boys, the young men. Let's work on all of this. Put love back in your house.
Mhm.
Maybe we put love back in our homes and treat our family, treat each other better. Some of this stuff won't happen because they won't be out there. But I want you all to talk a few minutes about some of the red flags of human trafficking. And then there's something that I learned and called, I think, go ahead, lifting, airlifting, or the art of lifting.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Lifting.
I just find out. But let's talk about some of the red flags. So y'all listen to this, write it down, write it in the chat too. So as they're talking, just so everybody can catch it. And just write it in the chat so everybody can catch it so we can know what to look for.
Mhm.
All right, so they're getting ready to give us some red flags to look for. All right, here they go.
All right, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start with some. I think one of the main things when you look at people, look at areas of vulnerability. What makes people vulnerable that they can become trafficked? Because any type of socioeconomic, emotional vulnerability puts people at risk. Looking at the face of a trafficker, I know we often say men. We have to also understand that women can be traffickers. Women can groom also, particularly women who have been victimized themselves. They will be used to trap and draw other females or girls in because as people, we tend to trust women more and think they're less dangerous or they're more maternal. And you often will have a woman who has been victimized or trafficked herself will be used to lure in other females. So that's a thing to be aware of. But anybody that has what is an unusual relationship with someone, that's not your aunt, that's not your godmother, look at those things because that's a part of their grooming process too. They're developing trust with somebody that they're actually playing planning to exploit and victimize. And so we need to be aware of that, what that looks like. What a trafficker looks like is just like we say, it's not the white van and the face that you may think represents a trafficker. It's not what they look like, it's what they act like. And the behaviors are very common and they are the same. Somebody once said to me, they have PhDs in mind control and psychological manipulation because they learn to spot vulnerabilities. They're not just roaming around the bus station and they're not just roaming around, airports or truck stops, things like that. Another thing too, I'd like for people to look out for with not only their children, but if they know other children. I've known several cases of young girls, particularly young girls. They get up every morning, they get dressed, they go to school as you expect them to do. Then somebody picks them up. They're not in class all day. Then they bring them back at the end of the school day and they drop them off. But if all of these young girls are from very poor families, all of a sudden they're being gifted with money, designer clothes. One of them, somebody even bought her a car. So if you see somebody that maybe, I don't know how she's affording all that stuff because that that's not what her family can afford, that may be a red flag too. Why is she wearing designer clothes and jewelry and all these things when she doesn't have a job and she's a teenager and you know that her parents are not that wealthy to be doing that?
Yeah, and thank you for setting the stage in such a broad way. One of the things I'd also add is whenever you see somebody that doesn't have what I call agency, doesn't have access to a phone, can't call their parents when they want to, they might, and again, I want to go back to our training on Friday because what we're going to show is what are the signs if you're in a bank? What are the signs if you are in a hotel? Because if you're in a bank, you might be a teller like the one teller that we trained who all of a sudden noticed weird deposits at weird times of day. She noticed other things that in the banking world were red flags for something's not right here with this client, with this banking client. You might have somebody, if they work in a hotel, you might see someone checking in with someone else. There's no luggage. They're paying in cash. They are doing other things. So we've developed this training so you can see red flags in all of these various workplaces. So that's one of the things. So it's going to be different. But like Lori said, whenever you just on a one-on-one basis, you see somebody doesn't have control of their life. They can't come and go as they want. You might be in a doctor's office where someone says, "Oh, I want to see you back in a week." And the person says to that nurse or that doctor, "Oh, I'll have to check with my boss. I'm not sure that I can get off." Or when they go to check in, they say, "Can I have your ID?" They say, "Oh, my boss keeps my driver's license. I don't have access to my ID." So those are all indicators that that person doesn't have control over their own life. They can't come and go. They can't call. They can't contact. They can't do the things that they want to do. One of our intern college students talked about how one time she was working as a waitress and she went to get the order from a couple. The guy was holding the woman's driver's license, and then when she delivered the drinks, they were old enough to drink. She overheard the woman say, "Hey, can I have my phone back?" So he was not only holding her ID, he was holding her cell phone. So that kind of coercive control, that could be a red flag for domestic violence. It could be a red flag for trafficking because that person all of a sudden doesn't have a say-so in their own life. And that's what traffickers do. They isolate people from help. They take away their ability to get help. And I'm not going to say too, if someone has a cell phone, there's no guarantee that they're not being trafficked too, because what can a trafficker do? Always see where you've been online, who you're contacting, GPS inside the phone. It can be another tool of control. So that's why you have to get trained. So attend our training on Friday.
Talk about the training on Friday,
Okay.
Ms. Robin. Y'all have done an excellent job. That hour went fast.
I can't believe it. Again, it happened again.
Again, it's time to go. But talk about the
Okay.
training on
It
Friday.
starts at 1:00. It is free. It's online. You'll get a certificate of attendance. If any of you can watch it while you're at work, do, because often what we see is people can have this as part of their professional development credit too, so they can get that. You'll be certified Stack Pro, which means that you'll get another recognition from us, as well as you will understand wherever you go in the community, how you could do what we've just been saying. See some of those red flags, spot it. It's a 90-minute training, starts at 1 o'clock, it's free. And we will be putting it, we record them, so they'll be on the STAC website, surviveandthriveadvocacy.org. It's on our website afterwards. It takes us about a week to get the training, to get it up. But we post it, so if you happen to miss it, you can watch it online, and we'll give you that certificate as well, so you can use it for your professional development, or, you're just gonna be smarter. You're gonna understand what the deal is here,
Yeah.
just like the name of the show. You'll know what human trafficking really is, what sex trafficking is, what labor trafficking is. And don't forget, sometimes both can happen at the same time.
Wow. Man, this has been absolutely fantastic. The question, the comment. Thank you, sweetheart. He has been writing the signs to look for, chosen divinely, stated I want in. Great coverage. So there's the information on the website, in the chat. If you want, call, email, get in contact with them, become a part, go to the training Friday. If you're out of town, Cindy, out of the country, y'all can watch it and get certified. Let's get this. Let's get in the know. Okay, let's keep our eyes open. Let's know, because human trafficking is real. It is here. And it is profitable. I forgot how much money they said. It was like over 250 billion.
With a B, billion.
Billion.
That we know of. It's
right.
so clandestine. We really don't know.
Wow. So y'all, let's help. And who knows? The life you save may be your own. That is real talk. I want to thank y'all so very much for tuning in again. Ms. Robin, Ms. Lori, thank you all so very much. That information was fantastic. I know that y'all asking questions and making comments, and some of you driving and listening, but when you hear this show again, y'all share it. Everybody on here, please share this on your page. If you share this on your page, so many other people will see it as well, because you have friends that I don't have, and you have friends that Ms. Robin, Ms. Lori don't have. And so if everybody starts sharing it, we'll reach more and more people. And remember, I'm just going to put this out here. If you want to host a Zoom meeting, or I believe if you want them, they will come to you.
Yeah, we'll come to you. We'll tailor the training to what you are, what you do. Like if you work in a grocery store, or you want the grocery store folks trained, or and any nonprofit agency, we'll work with you to make the training fit you.
Hey, so I mean, like I said, I bring good stuff. I really do. I bring real stuff. I want real talk. Don't try to sugarcoat it. Not trying to hide it. We don't want any woman, man, boy, or girl hurt because of any type of trafficking or anywhere, but a human trafficking, sex or domestic violence, whatever. So we're bringing you the tools so you can help. You say, how can I get involved in my community? This is one way. Know the signs. So listen, y'all can join me tonight at 7:30 for our Bible study. 7 p.m. we have prayer points. Our assistant pastor, Elder Antonio Witherspoon, I think this boy has been doing a prayer point for like 190 some Tuesdays straight. Every Tuesday from 7 to 7:30. And then our Bible study teacher tonight is going to be done by Evangelist Dennett McBride. Excellent teacher, excited, full of energy. She's also our praise and worship leader. And also, y'all go vote for her. She's been nominated as Worship Leader of the Year for the Florida Gospel Awards. And so has my show. My radio station that I'm on. I am on Hallelujah 98.3, and we too, that's right, we have been nominated for the show of the radio station of the year. Y'all go vote for us. Go vote for us. All right. So I want to thank you all, and then join me Sunday morning. My husband will be giving us another powerful, life-changing message. And this has been a great show. Again, Robin and Miss Lori, thank you all so very much for enlightening not only Leon County, but the surrounding areas, people through all the state and country.
And
So we are worldwide. Why? Yes, we are. And so for those of you who have tuned in, remember, keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open. Keep looking around, keep listening. But number one thing I want you to do, go get trained so you can know what to report when you see something about human trafficking. That's real talk.
Real talk with Judy. Real talk with Judy on the radio. Real talk with Judy. Real talk with Judy.